Most people think the moment they'll finally get ahead with money is right around the corner. Next paycheck, next tax refund, next bonus. There's always a future version of your finances that looks better than the present one, and that fantasy is comfortable enough to keep you from ever confronting what's actually going wrong right now. You're not lazy, you're not irresponsible, but you are running a system that was never designed to build wealth. It was designed to keep you treading water while feeling like you're swimming forward. The habits holding you back don't announce themselves. They disguise themselves as common sense, as normal adult behavior, as what everyone does. That's what makes them so dangerous. They pass as responsible, while quietly guaranteeing you never actually get anywhere. This video breaks down 11 money habits that are silently destroying your financial future. Some of these will feel personal because they are. That recognition is the starting point for everything that changes after. Let's get into it. Number 1. Outsourcing your financial decisions to people who profit from your confusion. You walk into the bank and they recommend a product. You call your insurance company and they suggest an upgrade. A financial advisor offers you a plan that sounds smart, but comes loaded with fees buried in the fine print. You nod along because the language is complicated, and the person across the desk seems confident, so you trust them. You sign. You move on. And you never ask the one question that matters. How does this person get paid? Because the person selling you the mutual fund with a 2% expense ratio doesn't lose sleep when your returns underperform the market by thousands over a decade. The insurance agent recommending the whole life policy doesn't suffer when you realize term would have cost a fraction and freed up cash to invest elsewhere. The mortgage broker pushing the largest loan you qualify for doesn't feel the squeeze when your monthly payments leave nothing for anything else. These people aren't villains. They're doing their jobs, but their job is to sell you financial products. And financial products are designed to benefit the institution first, and you second. When you hand over financial decisions because the jargon feels overwhelming, you're paying a premium for your own confusion. The alternative isn't becoming a financial expert overnight. It's learning enough to ask dangerous questions. What are the fees? What's the alternative? Who benefits most from this arrangement? Those 3 questions alone would save the average person thousands a year. Stop being a passive participant in your own financial life. Nobody will ever care about your money as much as you do. Number 2, anchoring your identity to your paycheck instead of your net worth. You make good money. You tell people your salary when it comes up. You think of yourself as someone who earns well. And because you earn well, you assume you're doing well. But income and wealth are completely different things. Income is what flows in. Wealth is what stays. A person making $200,000 a year who spends $105,000 is in a worse position than someone earning $60,000 who keeps $15,000. The first person looks successful. The second person actually is. The paycheck number creates a dangerous illusion. It makes you feel financially secure without requiring any evidence of actual security. You don't check your net worth because your income feels like enough of an indicator. You don't track your savings rate because the deposits look impressive on their own. You conflate earning power with financial health, and they are not the same thing. Your net worth is the only number that tells the truth about where you stand. Assets minus liabilities. What you own minus what you owe. Everything else is narrative. Start tracking that number monthly. Watch what actually happens to the money after it arrives. Because a high income with no retention is just expensive scenery. It looks great from the outside and provides nothing on the inside. Number 3, treating your home like an investment instead of an expense. You bought the house because everyone told you renting was throwing money away. Owning builds equity. Real estate always goes up. It's the smartest financial decision you'll ever make. Except nobody mentioned the property taxes that increase every year. The maintenance that averages 1 to 3% of the home's value annually. The insurance. The HOFEs. The new roof you'll need in 7 years. The interest payments that dwarf the principal for the first decade of your mortgage. The closing costs when you bought and the closing costs when you eventually sell. The reality is that for many people, a primary residence is a consumption expense. Disguised as an investment, it provides shelter, stability, and pride of ownership, all of which have genuine value. But the financial return, after accounting for every cost associated with owning, often underperforms what that same money would have earned in a simple index fund. This doesn't mean buying a home is always wrong. It means buying a home because you believe it's automatically a great investment is a mistake. Run the actual numbers. Compare total cost of ownership against renting and investing the difference. Factor in how long you plan to stay, because short holds almost never pencil out after transaction costs. The decision to buy should be a lifestyle decision made with clear financial eyes, not a financial decision made with romantic assumptions about real estate. Number 4, confusing financial motion with financial progress. You reorganize your budget app every few weeks. You read articles about money. You watch videos like this one. You download spreadsheets. You open tabs comparing savings accounts for the best interest rate. You talk about financial goals with friends. You feel productive. You feel like you're making moves. But when you look at the actual numbers, nothing has changed. Your debt is the same. Your savings are the same. Your investments are the same. The motion felt like progress, but it produced no results. This is one of the most satisfying traps in personal finance. Consuming information about money feels almost identical to actually managing money. Planning to budget feels like budgeting. Researching investments feels like investing. Thinking about getting out of debt feels like getting out of debt. But feeling and doing are completely different activities that produce completely different outcomes. Real financial progress is measurable. Debt went down by this amount. Savings went up by this amount. Net worth increased from here to here. If you can't point to a number that changed, you didn't make progress. You made noise. Pick one action. One real action that moves an actual number. Make an extra debt payment. Set up an automatic transfer to savings. Open the investment account you've been researching for 6 months. Do the thing, not the thing before the thing. Number 5, carrying financial shame in silence. You don't talk about money. Not honestly. You don't tell your friends the real reason. You can't go on the trip. You don't tell your partner how much credit card debt you're actually carrying. You don't ask for help because asking would require admitting where you stand, and where you stand feels embarrassing. Financial shame is epidemic and almost completely invisible. People carry debt in silence, make decisions from fear instead of strategy, and avoid confronting problems that grow worse with every month of avoidance. The shame creates isolation. The isolation prevents learning. The lack of learning perpetuates the mistakes. The mistakes deepen the shame. It's a closed loop with no exit unless you break it deliberately. Here's what nobody says. Most people are struggling more than they let on. The friend who seems financially comfortable might be drowning in payments. The coworker who always picks up the tab might be doing it on credit. The image of financial success that surrounds you is often exactly that. An image. When you hide your financial reality, you cut yourself off from the conversations, resources, and accountability that could actually change it. You don't need to broadcast your bank balance, but you do need at least one honest conversation with someone you trust. A partner, a friend, a financial counselor who isn't trying to sell you anything. Shame grows in darkness. It shrinks the moment you say it out loud. Number 6, optimizing comfort instead of building capacity. You pick the job that pays enough to be comfortable over the one that builds skills worth more later. You stay in the role that feels safe instead of pursuing the one that stretches you. You arrange your entire financial life around maintaining your current standard of living instead of expanding your ability to earn. Comfort optimization is invisible because it feels responsible. You're not being reckless. You're being stable. You're being practical. You're being smart about risk. But stability without growth is just stagnation with better branding. The most valuable financial asset you own isn't in any account. It's your ability to earn income, your skills, your network, your reputation, your capacity to solve problems people will pay for. Investing in that asset through education, career moves, strategic risks, and skill development produces returns that no savings account can match. A 10% raise that you negotiate or earn through new capabilities compounds for the rest of your career. Every future raise builds on top of it. Every bonus is calculated from it. The lifetime value of increasing your earning power by even a modest percentage dwarfs what most people will ever save by cutting expenses. Cutting costs has a floor. You can only reduce spending so far before life becomes unsustainable. Earning potential has no ceiling. Both matter, but most people exhaust themselves squeezing pennies from the expense side while ignoring the unlimited upside of the income side. Number 7, using round numbers as financial goals instead of real ones. You want to save $10,000. Why? Because it's a round number. That sounds respectable. You want to pay off debt by the end of the year. Why that timeline? Because it sounds clean. You want to retire at 65. Why? Because that's when people retire. None of these goals are connected to your actual life. They're borrowed numbers that feel good, but mean nothing specific. A real financial goal starts with a real need. How much does 6 months of your actual expenses cost? That's your emergency fund target, not some arbitrary round number. What interest rate is your debt charging, and how much? Does each month of delay actually cost you? That determines your payoff urgency, not a calendar date you picked because it felt tidy. When do you actually want to stop working, and how much annual income do you need your portfolio to generate at that point? That's your retirement number, not an age someone else decided was standard. Vague goals produce vague effort. When the target is fuzzy, the motivation is fuzzy, the plan is fuzzy, and the results are non-existent. Specific numbers attached to specific reasons create urgency that round numbers never will. Calculate the real number. Write it down. Make it uncomfortable and precise. Then build backward from it with actual math instead of hopeful approximation. Number 8, letting inflation silently eat your savings. You have money in a savings account. Good. It's earning 0.5% interest. Not good. Inflation is running at 3 to 4%, sometimes higher, which means every year, the money sitting in that account buys less than it did the year before. You're not saving. You're losing slowly. $10,000 sitting in a low-yield savings account for 10 years doesn't stay $10,000 in real terms. It becomes roughly $7,000 or $8,000 in purchasing power. You kept the money safe, and safety cost you thousands. This doesn't mean savings accounts are useless. Emergency funds need to be liquid and accessible, and a high-yield savings account is the right place for money you might need within the next 6 months. But money beyond that, money with no job and no timeline, is wasting away every single day it sits idle. The discomfort of investing feels risky, but the alternative, doing nothing, carries its own guaranteed risk. Inflation doesn't negotiate. It doesn't pause. It doesn't care that you feel uncertain about the market. It erodes purchasing power whether you're paying attention or not. Money needs a job. Short-term money belongs in high-yield savings. Medium-term money might belong in bonds or conservative allocations. Long-term money belongs in the market, working, growing, compounding. Idle money isn't safe. It's just losing value quietly enough that you don't notice until the damage is already done. Number 9, making financial decisions from your phone at midnight. You're in bed. You're tired. You're scrolling. Something catches your eye. A product you didn't know existed 5 seconds ago suddenly feels necessary. The targeted ad hit perfectly. The influencer made it look essential. The checkout process took 11 seconds. You wake up the next morning with a confirmation email and a vague sense of regret. Impulse spending has been engineered to be frictionless. Every barrier between desire and purchase has been systematically removed. One-click buying. Saved payment methods. Facial recognition checkout. The entire infrastructure of modern commerce is designed to collapse the space between wanting something and owning it, because that space is where rational thought lives. When you eliminate friction, you eliminate thinking. And when you eliminate thinking, you spend based on emotion, fatigue, boredom, and social influence rather than actual need. The fix isn't complicated. Build your own friction back into the process. Delete saved payment information so you have to enter it manually. Institute a 48-hour rule for any purchase over a certain threshold. Remove shopping apps from your phone entirely. Unsubscribe from promotional emails that exist solely to manufacture desire you didn't have before opening them. The goal isn't to never buy anything, it's to make every purchase a decision instead of a reflex. When buying requires effort, you buy less. When buying requires thought, you buy better. When buying requires intention, you stop waking up to confirmation emails you don't remember sending. Number 10, using debt to fund depreciating assets. You financed the car over 6 years. You took out a personal loan for furniture. You put the vacation on a payment plan. You're paying interest on things that are currently losing value. The car you're making payments on is worth less every single month. By the time you've paid it off, it's worth a fraction of what you owe in total when you add the interest. The furniture that felt essential when you bought it would sell for pennies at a yard sale. The vacation lives only in photos that cost you 18 months of payments to create. Debt makes sense in exactly one context: when it's used to acquire or build something that increases in value or generates income. A mortgage on a property in a strong market. A business loan that funds revenue-producing operations. Student debt for a degree with demonstrable earning power in a field with actual demand. Outside of that, debt is a tool that costs you money to use. And using expensive tools to acquire things that lose value is the financial equivalent of paying someone to take your money. Every dollar that goes toward interest on a depreciating asset is a dollar that could have been earning returns in the other direction. The math works against you twice, once through the interest you're paying, and again through the returns you're not earning. If you can't buy it with cash you already have, the answer isn't financing. The answer is waiting until you can, or acknowledging that you can't afford it and redirecting that money somewhere it actually works for you. Number 11, building your financial life around a single income stream. One job, one paycheck, one source of everything you need to survive. If that stream stops, everything stops with it. The rent, the groceries, the debt payments, the entire structure of your life depends on one employer continuing to find you valuable enough to keep paying. This is the most normalized form of financial risk that exists. Almost everyone does it, so it doesn't feel dangerous. But concentration risk is concentration risk whether it applies to a stock portfolio or a household budget. One layoff, one health issue, one company restructuring, and the whole system collapses because there was never a backup. Building additional income streams isn't about hustling yourself into exhaustion. It's about reducing fragility. A freelance skill you can deploy when needed. A small side project that generates even modest recurring revenue. An investment portfolio that produces dividends. Any source of income. That doesn't depend on the same entity as your primary one. The amount matters less than the existence. Even a few $100s a month from a secondary source changes your psychology completely. You negotiate differently when you're not terrified of losing your only income. You make career decisions from strategy instead of desperation. You sleep differently when one disruption can't end everything. Start small. Identify a skill you already have that someone would pay for outside your current job. Test it. Build it slowly alongside your primary work. The goal isn't to replace your job tomorrow. The goal is to make sure your financial survival never depends entirely on a single decision maker who isn't you. Here's what connects every habit on this list. Each one thrives on autopilot. You didn't choose these patterns deliberately. You inherited them. From the culture around you, from what felt normal, from what nobody ever questioned because everyone was doing the same thing. Outsourcing decisions to people who profit from your confusion felt like trusting experts. Anchoring identity to income felt like motivation. Treating your home as an automatic investment felt like wisdom passed down from previous generations. Confusing motion with progress felt productive. Carrying shame in silence felt private. Every single one of these patterns felt reasonable while it was costing you. That's the design. Financial habits that felt obviously destructive would get corrected immediately. The ones that persist are the ones camouflaged as normal, responsible adult behavior. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't filled with bad luck or insufficient income. It's filled with defaults you never examined and assumptions you never questioned. I built an entire breakdown of how financial literacy actually works, covering everything from how debt compounds against you, to how tax-advantaged accounts create wealth most people never access, to how simple systems can automate decisions that would otherwise require willpower you don't have at the end of a long day. That link is right here. If more than a few of these habits felt like a mirror, that video is where you go next. Because recognition without action is just awareness that fades. You felt the discomfort. You saw the patterns. Now the only question that matters is whether you do something with what you've seen or let it dissolve into the same fog that kept these habits invisible in the first place. The patterns that feel normal are the ones that cost the most, precisely because you never think to challenge them. Challenge them now. Not tomorrow. Not when things settle down. Not when you feel ready. The system that got you here is still running. It won't stop on its own. You have to be the one who interrupts it. And the only moment you actually control is this one.